Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you. And we got our guest, Dalibor Suchy, and my co-host, Lucky Stone. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Pleasure to be here.
Tonight we're going to be talking about bringing down the buildings collapsing, and the walls coming down. All thanks to a dream I had last night that was very vivid and very real. I don't know why, but it was speaking to me. I don't know who the guy was talking to me, but he was talking, and I was saying, why are we tearing down these old, beautiful buildings? And he says, make way for new ones. And
that sounds like Jericho. That was the first city that was torn down, and it was accompanied by the sound of loud trumpets. Trumpets, that's an allusion to Trump, but also sound frequency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I looked at it on the internet, and it was talking about buildings coming down and how you're moving on. And I don't think none of that's happening to me. I mean, everything in my life is kind of the same, and I don't see any difference in the future, really. So, but I think it had a different meaning, and I think it's to do with the world, because I think it wanted me to share. I felt like maybe it was Brian guiding my hand, because he usually does. And it was about I think it was because everything was really nice and they were just old, and the new stuff, and the guy kept saying, we're building new, we gotta get rid of these. And anyway,
it could mean something to the effect of as alluded to in the movie The Wall by Pink Floyd, where it refers to the wall that people build between each other. It's the wall that keeps other people out, that keeps you from having a genuine connection with other people on a soul level, if they are worthy of it, if they are not about to abuse that privilege. But it could mean a lot of things. Walls coming down. It could be borders coming down. The importance of countries as political entities on the world stage decreasing in its significance. The takeover by society of major corporations, where today the major players are no longer countries, it seems, but corporations like Facebook, Twitter, BlackRock, Vanguard.
yeah.
The company that owns everything, basically.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, we're in like the shadows, and we don't really know what's going on. And most of the time, we're just in the dark and we don't pay attention. We need to bring those buildings, those walls down, and look at things in a different way. And I think that is happening. I think it is happening to a point where we see things like, here, I'll show you, like this, which is pretty obvious, but they're trying to push this kind of a narrative. And this is just a funny one because that I brought up because of what's happening in the world today. Now, I'm sure you've all seen this one about the ancient aliens that they found that are 1,000 years old. And
it's made of ancient paper mache.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, all right, and they want us.
I mean, it's not even anatomically correct. If you look at those shoulders, it looks like some 5-year-old kid, did this out of clay or something.
Yeah, that's the whole point. I mean, I understand that there's probably aliens, but they're not like 1.5 feet tall, and this is somebody's rendering of what everybody talks about, the little grays or something. Now I see Pamela Jean's in the house and she knows all about that stuff. Pamela, do you think this is real or is it just stupid?
It's smoke. It's smoke.
Yeah, look this way while we do something else.
Yeah, but, I mean, I keep saying I used to believe in aliens until the government told me to believe in aliens.
Yeah, and she says yes. their waist area is not like normal babies. And yes, okay, yeah. So anyway, it's just too good to be true. You
Hmm.
know, they just happen to find these now, and now they want to have everybody believe this.
And if it's a real mummy, why didn't they do like an X-ray or an MRI scan like did of the Egyptian mummies, and show us like what that looks like? What do the bones look like? What do the insides look like? If at least that would disprove that this being some type of a plaster or paper mache statue.
Hmm. Yeah, and I don't know. I would like to know more about this. It just, I hate to say, it just seems too good.
Hmm.
And see, she says they are not all, they're not all the same. And she says, I have seen different types. Yes. Have you seen any like this, but that small, or these something else? See, this, it bothers me that they're putting this out there.
Hmm.
And it just does. I
Hmm.
think, they're either trying to get us to believe the aliens are fake now because it's just so fake, or
Yeah.
that the people latch onto this and say, yes, it's definitely real.
Mm.
Uh, or is this a distraction for something else?
Uh, D, all of the above, I would say. It's
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of both. Uh, on the one hand, if a government comes out and says anything, you should not believe it automatically. In fact, you should come from a position of disbelief. You should auto hoax everything, basically. And second of all, if somebody really wanted to hoax an alien body, you could really do it well. You could create like a fake alien skeleton and then put fake flesh around it, and then like cover it all up in plastic, right?
Yep.
And or plaster, and then do the X-ray, do the MRI, and say this is what it looks like under. Sure, you can see the bones and everything, or even some internal organs. But no, it's just like some paper mache figure. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it does. It looks kind of paper mache-ish.
Yeah,
Um, it does. And Tina says maybe the Mexicans were hoping to make a buck. Maybe because,
could be.
but I think it's a distraction because,
Hmm.
like right now, if you haven't heard, and I'll look this up in a second here for us so we can.
That thing's
Uh,
gonna be on eBay. It's gonna be on eBay.
yeah, I wouldn't doubt it would be.
Hmm.
I seen on or I heard this one guy talking about the $5 uh, trillion budget. Um,
Hmm.
I'm trying to spell it here. $5 trillion budget. The United States government wants to up our taxes. They want to up the United States people that us, our
Hmm.
normal taxes. They want to up it $5 trillion. And I'm
Hmm.
thinking, well, what a great time. We'll bring out the aliens. We'll up it $5 trillion. They're all paying attention to the aliens.
Yeah, and what portion of those taxes are paid by the aliens? If you want to get really facetious about it, but no, the real problem is brain drain from the United States, and you got immigration. You got immigration of poor people, and the rich people are leaving the U.S. in droves. I mean, they had a record of people renouncing their citizenship for tax purposes, and before it used to cost $700. Then it was like $3,000, and now it's something like $15,000 just to cancel your citizenship and not owe them any taxes. Why? Because it's the richest 1% or 5% that's leaving, and those are the people that pay 2/3 of all the income taxes.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
Notwithstanding the fact that as a percentage of their earnings, those taxes are lower than they would be for the middle class. But nevertheless, fact remains that the rich pay a disproportionate amount of the income tax.
Yeah, see here, President Biden went big in the $6.8 trillion annual budget proposal. Congress is calling for a $5 trillion tax increase over the next decade, with lawmakers expect after the president downplayed his tax agenda in earlier meetings. Wow, $5 trillion.
Okay,
You
so
know,
do the math. Yeah, 5 trillion. That's 5 times 10 to the 12th, and you got 350 million people. That's in the United States. That's 1/3 of a billion. And so you're looking at an increase of something like $50,000. Am I right?
I lucky maybe you're a better adder than I am. I can't have that in my head. I'm not accurate.
No, it's those numbers. They pan out. Yes, yes, and it's
okay. Good.
but
Good.
also with Brexit and Saudi Arabia and Bolivia and Ethiopia and China and Russia all go into that. Their dollar
BRICS.
going away from the American dollar. What's it gonna matter? Because the American dollar is going to be worthless, and we won't be able to send money to other countries. So
Yeah.
so it's all gonna
And plus,
it's gonna be a mess.
it's unfairly biased towards the corporations because you got to realize that according to every tax system on earth, corporations only pay taxes on their retained earnings, i.e., profits. Okay, where you, the individual, pays a tax on your revenue, which is your total income, and you pay a tax on your assets, like property tax, and you pay a tax on your expenditures, which is sales tax. Corporations don't pay that.
Uh-huh.
Which is why I've been advocating people to for personal corporatehood instead of corporate personhood, personal corporatehood, where each person has his own corporation with the same name as he, and obviates the need to pay things like sales tax or maybe not property tax, but a significant chunk of your income tax because you're paying tax on revenue, not profits. If you were to take your income and strip out everything that you spend just to live, like your food, mortgage, whatever, what are you left with? Nothing. So why should you be paying any money on that? Besides, you're technically not earning anything when you work for a living because I'll give you an example. Let's say I make a deal with Robert that I'm going to work for him for 10 euros an hour. Okay. Which means that we made an agreement that my labor is worth 10 euros an hour. Okay. So therefore, I'm exchanging my hour of labor for his 10 euros, meaning that I'm making 0 euros profit on it because I'm trading 10 euros for 10 euros.
Uh-huh.
So why should I pay any tax on that?
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
reason.
You're right. Just logic,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
it's it's all corporate. The government is just a big corporation, and they're paid off by corporations, and everyone above us makes money. The government's supposed to serve us, but no, we serve them. We're just their personal
Hmm.
indentured servants.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
in the United States, it's particularly complicated because you have not one tax structure above you, as in a unitary state like my own country, Czech Republic, right here, where you have only one tax authority, which is the government. Whereas in the United States, you have the federal government, you have the state government, you have the county government, and in some cases, you have the city government.
Uh-huh.
Like the city of New York, uh, they they charge you an income tax for any money that you earn while working there. I know because I paid it because I worked there.
Uh-huh.
So it's totally ridiculous. You're taxed a whole lot more than the nominal tax rate. I would say it's about 80-90% most people pay in taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. It
Hmm.
is. It's crazy amounts we pay, and then we just work harder. Isn't it
Hmm.
something how they tax us more and then we got less? So then we go get two jobs if we have to. Our jobs don't. People don't realize your job does not care about you. Maybe the
Hmm.
little man, maybe your boss does, but the big part of your job doesn't. I just had a friend and he was quitting his job. He did it really good. He was a general manager and he was, oh yeah, I quit my job. And oh, it's like they didn't even care. They didn't offer to keep me, try to save my, oh, stay, please, whatever. Nope. Okay, see you later.
Hmm.
And he says, I made them so much money. I brought the business up. I increased the sales, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They didn't care. They just
Hmm.
said, yeah, bye. Good riddance. And I said, every job I've ever had, they did the same thing too.
Hmm.
Lucky, have you had a lot of jobs?
Oh yeah,
Anything like that? They
yeah,
did the
no, yeah,
same thing.
yeah. I mean, I worked for a company. We had a lot of trouble getting a certain a building getting into alignment to get it working. And finally, we got everything working right. But headquarters had already decided that this building, this location, was just losing too much money. And even though at that point we were making the money, they had already decided a year prior, when they were telling us for years, we could never shut this building down. We could never shut this location down. This is the only one that does this in the country. Well, they had already decided that they're going to do all the work inside, I think it was Ireland, because it was cheaper, tax write-offs. And they decided the year before, they got that one running, and then they shut us all down and laid us all off. And I was laid off, and then they realized that I was one of the major cogs in the machine to get things going. In 3 days, they said, "Hey, we need you to come back, but since we already paid you that, for leaving, you have to come back as a temp worker." And because I'm an idiot and wanted to, I wanted to get things done because they basically shut it down, but they had to slow things down. They still had products that they had to get out the door. They needed a place open for the 6 more months. So I came back on, and that lasted 3 months. So I didn't have 6 months of temp work. I had 3 months of temp work. They said, "Yeah, sorry, we got everything done early. You guys did a great job. Thanks a lot. You guys, you still have 3 more months. Well, you lucky, you're a temp worker. Bye-bye." And I was off. But by the time I was off, and because the way the system worked, I couldn't get unemployment because I was already been hired back. In the system, they said, "Oh, you'll be paid. It's going to take a little time." I had no money coming in for 3 months. I had to go to welfare and say, "This is what's happened. I am so sorry." And she says, "No, this is what it's for. We'll help you." They gave me money for food. I call my mortgage company, explain everything, go, "Okay, you will not get any," because I had paid always for years. And they said, and this is back in 2013 when things were falling apart. But my mortgage company worked with me, but it took me almost 6 more months to find a job because everyone that I had worked with, they had found jobs and they had filled up all the positions and I couldn't find anything. So yeah, corporations don't care about you. I mean, my current job, my boss, 2 of his, his pets, people that he aligned, he got, helped them into their position. He helped raise them up. I work third shift, so I'm out, out of mind, out of sight, out of mind. But they decided that they just didn't want to do this anymore. And he was hurt. This is a director, and he was hurt. And he asked me questions, and I'm like, honestly, I work third shift. I get no benefits. Everyone else. He goes, "Well, I'll take care of you. I'll take care." No, he's not going to take care of me. I'm out of sight, out of mind. So, yeah, companies, they might to your kissy face, but in the end of the day, they really don't care much about you. Whatever they can get from you.
Yeah.
And yes, since you bring up the subject of welfare or unemployment, if you do what I said, and have like your own corporation that you do business through, that's the drawback. If you have a corporation and you're like the owner or major officer, you won't get unemployment or welfare until you dissolve that corporation. And to dissolve that, you need a tax clearance certificate, which is not that easy to get. It's not like you don't get that within 6 months. It takes like a year. I know because I went through that, because I tried it back when I was still living in the United States. So, yeah.
Well, the welfare system, there are loopholes here and there because I was there for hours, and I saw the way things that shouldn't have happened. Especially the people who were given priority were not legal American citizens, but they were given priority, and it was obvious. And the welfare woman said to me, she says, "Yeah, it is kind of strange the way we do things, but the way they are, the more money that goes out, the more money they have for their department, for their." So and she was very straightforward with me. She says, "Yeah, so we'd love to help you." And even when I was back to working, they still were putting money on the card, and I got calls saying, "Hey, if you don't use this, you lose it." I'm like, "Well, I'm not working." She goes, "It's still on your account. You might as well use it." Because again, they want us to use that money because it proves that they have the expenditures so they can get more money.
Yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And they don't care. It's you're here today, gone tomorrow. They get a new guy to fill your place, and your boss, your coworkers might miss you,
Hmm.
but in the big scheme of things, they don't. It's like the beehive. You have the
Hmm.
beehive, and you got a few drones or whatever. You got all the drones. The only one they care about is the queen.
Hmm.
Everybody else could be dying left and right. Do those bees go back and say, "Oh, are you all right? Let's doctor you up"? No, he's dead. Throw him out the door. And they do. It's literally what they do. They carry the dead
Hmm.
ones right on out. They don't go, "Oh,
Well,
yeah,
it's worse than that. It's the people who do most of the work. They're the ones that they care when they shut down, and people, people burn out. And oh, you're not performing up to your potential. Like I'm doing more work than anyone else. I've always been like that, but I'm having a little bit of a dry spot. They don't care. They look, well, for all this time, this is your output, even though it's more than everyone else. Now you're not performing as we expect you to. Like, but
Hmm.
I'm performing higher than everyone else.
yep,
I
they don't
mean,
care."
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
my pay increases. Uh, they've been lower at my current company than I ever in my life, and I've got high ranks, high, but the percentage increase is less than it was years ago. I'm like, what's going on with this? Like, well, everyone, this is just how the company is, but the company's making record profits.
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Because if you start working at 50% and work your way up to 100%, you're doing good. But if you start out with 110% like you're doing, I'm doing 110% of my work.
Mm.
Well, great.
That's also why, like, in Eastern Europe, if you do that, everybody, all your coworkers are gonna hate you
Hmm.
because
Yeah,
you're like screwing up the averages for them.
Hmm.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, exactly. So it doesn't really pay. I've noticed that. You're right, and I've done that too. And even at the job I'm at, it's like you got one guy and he's he's doing his, and then he's going out and doing extra. And I'm like, well, if I go out and do my job, and then I go out and do extra, they're going to expect that of me, and then I'm going to have to do it all the time, like you said. And then when they want, well, what did you accomplish this year? Well, now I have to do mine and then the extra, and then the extra to look good.
hmm. Yeah, yeah, and then they also use tactics like, if you don't come in on Saturday and work for free, then you lose your. There's a possibility that you might lose your job. There's like subtle innuendos your way that if you don't do this, then bad things will happen. And like you said, they don't really care about the individual. No. And in most of the jobs that I've left, no, they didn't care that I was leaving. No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, they don't care. It's
Hmm.
like you said, you nailed the head on it. It's corporate. It's corporate. We don't know our bosses, and we know our boss, and maybe his
Hmm.
boss, but then we don't know all the other guys up the step, and then the top guy. We don't even know who owns the company or runs the company. They may have a figurehead, but
Hmm.
does he actually run and own the company?
Hmm.
Probably not. We're just guessing, and we're a little guy. We could die tomorrow, and that big top honcho, he ain't gonna come out and say it's a terrible loss. We lost one of our own. Blah blah blah. Nope, there's not even a mention of it.
Hmm.
I've
Well,
had it. It
that's
happened.
why. Yeah, that's why. For most of my working life, I've been self-employed, and
Mhm.
it's worked out quite well for me. Because and what's worked out even better for me is to be self-employed with no employees. To go out of your way to not hire anybody, and also never take on a partner because once they get their hand inside your wallet, that they take it.
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
I've never had with one exception, and that would be my own brother. I've never had a partner that didn't at least try to cheat me, or that hasn't outright cheated me because they had access to the account.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, this is so true.
Hmm.
Okay, so in bringing those walls and things down, it's the veil. The veil. I got this. This is kind of cool. The veil divides us humans from the true reality of the world, which is what we're talking about. There is so much we don't and can't know unless we can constantly seek out. Knock and the door will be open. Seek and you shall find. If we do this, we will slowly but surely be awakened to the truth of our world. And that's what we, just like getting a job, we got to realize we don't matter. We got to realize, yeah, we shouldn't work as hard as we do because they don't care. It's like a baby who comes into the world on a clean slate, knowing nothing. Gradually, it learns about this world in which it has to function. The veil, as it were, is slowly lifted. Yeah, well, the veil is they put the, when you're born, our parents if inflict the veil on us. Oh, I remember. You know what, son? You need to go to work, get a job, go to work, and find a wife, buy a house, have some kids, pay taxes, work, and then you'll get retired, and then and that's it. You'll be right where we are now. There you go. And that was what was trying to be instilled in my life. It says we are, for example, constantly being brainwashed by the media, advertising, as well as the powers that be. We, the masses, are manipulated like puppets. And most of us are not even aware of this. This is one example of how we become conscious of our world. If we question everything, the wars that are fought by the ordinary man are wars where the all-powerful in this world become wealthy, and the ordinary man has to lose or sacrifice his life. These examples are just scratching the surface. The more you think and question, the more the answers will come, and so you become more conscious of what's behind the veil, and there's so much more to find. And I thought that was a very powerful thing because it's so true. I mean, people join the military to protect the country, and then they get shipped off to some Middle East country to fight some war so that we can have more oil and control the drug trade, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, at the same time, like all those wars in the Middle East have been useless because the United States specifically has enough oil for its own self, for its own uses, as well as for export. I mean, the first thing that Trump did was when he came into office was he opened the Keystone Pipeline, and the first thing that Biden did when he came into office was he closed the Keystone Pipeline. And that Keystone Pipeline from the Anwar in northern Alaska is way more than enough to guarantee U.S. energy independence and generate money from export. So, so why wasn't that ever brought online again? Why did they shut that down? Because there's an ulterior agenda. It's not just about money. It's about other things. It's about your soul. It's about your allegiance. It's about your faith in the system as a whole. And I always point out the fact that it's the media doing most of this because the media has become the church of the state. It's the secular church. It's what the government wants you to believe. And most of those stories are actually just press releases issued by the government, by various agencies of the government for public consumption. And a lot of it is 100% fake, and or it's misrepresented. Like I always keep returning to the assassination of Ronald Reagan. If you people, I was a kid back then when it happened, and even to me, it seemed like fake news. I mean, the guy gets a quarter-inch hole through his chest, and he's back on his feet in 11 days.
Yeah,
even if that happened, if you got a quarter-inch hole through your arm, you wouldn't be back on your feet in 2 weeks. Much less your chest, where it destroyed one of his ribs and a major blood vessel. I contend that he actually was assassinated because why else would there be all this cover up? Why else would they find the perpetrator, Hinckley, not guilty? They found him not guilty. They put him in a mental hospital for a couple of years, and he's out. And not only is he out, but he's also making YouTube videos you can check. And some of these, he's mostly playing his own bad songs. And one of these bad songs that he sings and accompanies himself on a guitar is "I Got You Right in the Heart." Okay.
Yeah.
And it's also eerie, like the similarity between Reagan and Trump, in the sense that they both had the same election slogan, "Make America Great Again." if you remember. It's just that Reagan's was "Let's make America great again."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you remember that. So
Yeah.
it
Well,
couldn't be more obvious.
we all grew up during the Reagan years, and
Hmm.
we seen all those things. And
Yeah, well,
yeah,
just the fact that when he got elected, when he got inaugurated, that was the day that they released the hostages in Iran, if you
mhm.
remember.
Yeah, like it was like he came in and they said, "Oh, it's all
Yeah,
because we are, I'm a powerful leader and I'll do something."
yeah, yeah. The fact that it was staged to make it look like he's this all-powerful leader and that people would actually gobble it up, to make him seem more powerful than he was and guarantee him a second term.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's sometimes you got to wonder. There's weird there's weird things going on, and like it said, the media is covering it up, and then
Hmm.
they have it on television. People
Hmm.
see things and they believe them.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, at what point do we say that can't be real? Like the buildings falling down on 9/11. I mean,
Yeah.
I watched that happen on
Hmm.
my TV set. It looked really real.
Yeah.
But when when you look at it in retrospect, in hindsight, you say, well, I seen it happen, but
Hmm.
that can't happen.
Oh, I
That
seen it happen with my own eyes. That's the thing. I saw it from across the river in New Jersey. I mean, I
Mhm,
didn't see the buildings collapse and everything. I looked out the window after I heard the news and everything, and I saw the smoke. And it was a perfectly clear Tuesday afternoon. No, not a cloud in the sky. They made sure of that with weather modification, so everybody from all the area could see it. Don't forget that 1/6 of the American population lives within 200 miles of ground zero.
mhm.
So yeah, I saw the huge black smoke cloud turning south. So and the worst thing about that disaster is that two buildings got hit, but all seven of them came down. And people point out building seven. Well, building seven isn't the end of it. It's like only one of the layers of the onion. Building six. What about building six? Building six. You have like there was like a square building, but only the core collapsed. How does that happen?
Yeah, it's magic.
It's
See
magic.
that
Or that
exactly.
that thin, tall domino-looking building right next to them, that Millennium Hotel. I mean, that was like as thin as could be, yet it was unaffected by all this happening right next to it, and it continued standing right there. It was just so unreal, and the fact that each one of them fell into their own footprint without damaging any other buildings, that was, to me, the hallmark of a controlled demolition, because that's exactly what it was. Exactly what it was.
But but the thing is when you're in the moment, which they needed, when
Hmm.
you're in the moment and you're there, you don't think about that until later on, and
Hmm.
after it's already said and done, that it's too late. They know
Hmm.
that. As the buildings are falling, you go, well, that can't happen. That's physically impossible.
I
You
said it
know,
right from the beginning that it was fake, that it was impossible for the official fairy tale to be true. That
mm,
it does this doesn't happen, and as a matter of fact, it was specifically designed to be able to withstand a direct hit from a 747 jetliner.
yeah, yeah, and it's happened to other buildings before. It got hit by
Yeah,
planes.
the Empire State Building got hit by a military plane loaded with weapons and fuel, and only part of one floor or two floors got destroyed, and nobody got killed because it was during off business hours. So
Yeah, what happened to the $2 trillion that was lost as cowboy boots?
yeah, what
In
happened to all the gold? What happened to all the gold?
Yeah,
Then,
it just disappeared. Yep.
hmm.
Remember, you cannot, out of all the things that could get destroyed, we do know that you cannot destroy gold.
Hmm.
Is that not
Yeah,
correct, or am I wrong?
yeah. No, you can melt it down, but you would eventually recover it somewhere at the bottom of all the rubble and the debris and oxides and slag and whatever you got. but it would never be destroyed. Plus, it melts at a lower temperature than the steel would. So
Yeah.
that would be one of the first things. But then again, yes, it was in a concrete and steel reinforced vault. But to me, that points to theft. That it must have been, stolen at some point before the staged accident happened.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
for $2 trillion, amazing what they will do. You
yeah.
know, I
And
mean,
plus, it was a really easy thing to pull off, at least with the two taller buildings 1 and 2 of the World Trade Center, because I've been up there many times. And if you were the cheap type like myself and didn't want to pay $20 for the elevator all the way to the top, and you took the stairs, you would notice that every couple of stairs, every couple of floors was abandoned. There was like nothing there. And uh, usually when you saw like an abandoned floor like that, you saw like construction material, bags and bags of cement. Well, those could have been bags of thermite for all we know, thermite or some other explosive. Who knows?
yeah. Yes, yes, yeah. There's,
They
yeah,
had ample opportunities to plant bombs in there. Ample opportunities.
yes, yes, they did, and nobody would have questioned it. I mean,
And
especially back in those days, nobody would have gave it a second look. They would
mhm,
have just, you know, walked
yeah.
right on by.
Exactly. And see, that wasn't the only weird demolition of a building. Every major like incident where that was accompanied by the loss of civil liberties in the United States was accompanied by a building demolition. That was Oklahoma City. That was the Branch Davidian complex in Waco, Texas. Sandy Hook, that too was demolished,
Hmm.
and all the remains were taken off site, just like the World Trade Center. All that stuff got carted that same very day. They started carting it off to China. Uh,
Yeah, a little weird, a little
yeah,
weird.
uh,
Uh,
all those places they got destroyed,
mhm.
and the remnants taken off site.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're doing that with Lahaina. It said they're bulldozing
Yeah,
everything, put it in cans, and taking it to the main island to be disposed of. I'm thinking
yeah,
that's just a
hmm
little funny going on there.
yeah.
Lucky, what do you have to say? You're awful quiet about this mess debacle we're unveiling here.
It's all interesting, that's for sure.
hmm
Um, they're also all trigger words.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that is
They're
true.
all very controlled.
They are. They are. We
All
can't
of them. You say those. Each one of those are
stand too.
targets. They want that narrative. They like that narrative, and they'll do anything to keep that narrative.
That is true. We should move on to a new one. Here's a good one for us to talk about. The world's first 3D salmon is hitting store shelves, and it looks kind of good. Now, this could be a veil. We're going to go to the store, buy our food. Remember, they're doing 3D meat. They're doing, that meat that's not meat. And they're doing, all these things to get us to eat bugs and stuff like that. Why is this? Is there something that we're not seeing here? Is there a point behind
Well,
all this?
first of all, I'd ask, like, since when is it profitable to print meat as opposed to growing it the way it's been done for millions of years? Okay, because it's never cheaper to like 3D print anything. It's always a hell of a lot more expensive. Like any kind of thing made of plastic, like one of these, takes a quarter second to make one of these at a fraction of a penny using injection molding of polycarbonate or polycarbonate resin or whatever. And if I were to 3D print that, it would take me a day. And I'm not even mentioning the cost.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
why is this a thing? Why is this even on the menu, so to speak, literally, figuratively speaking?
Yeah, and is it cheaper? Is it cheaper? No,
No.
it's more expensive. So why
hmm
are you going out to buy something more expensive
hmm
than the cheap stuff?
Yeah,
You know,
you could just go to a store and buy regular salmon. It's not like salmon's an endangered species, for Christ's sake.
although I just heard that today that California may be limiting the salmon catches and the salmon fishing because of the small populations of salmon in the Pacific Ocean. So I was just like, wow, this is coming in right on schedule, isn't it? I
But
mean,
that's California doesn't catch salmon. Alaska catches the salmon.
yeah,
Washington, the coast of Canada. That's what this. California has no dog in that fight. It's an empty promise.
yeah,
Maybe that refers to farmed salmon. You know,
Food
but
trucks
because
is
of
nasty, anyways. That stuff's full of
well,
toxins.
yeah,
yeah. Well, they were saying that with all of that with
Fukushima
that.
water.
Yeah, but they weren't talking about. They were talking about. Well, we got to stop the salmon fishing because of the spawning. Like there won't be enough fish to spawn. And I don't get that. In Canada, the only natives are allowed to fish salmon. Oh, interesting. So they're doing it in Canada already. So if you're a white man, you can't go fishing for salmon. You have to go somewhere else.
See, that's the other thing. That's another prelude to an empire in decline, where you have like different levels of citizenship, different rights for different people. Where instead of every citizen or every inhabitant having the same right, some people have different rights than others. The natives, for whatever reason, have more rights than you do. As if
Yeah,
that's some kind of a compensation for how they were mistreated in times past.
That's
yeah,
George Orwell. That's George Orwell. All animals are equal. Some are more equal than others.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Animal
George
Farm.
Orwell is a master. He tried to warn us, but instead the government decided, "Hey, this is a great recipe. We'll use this to make our plans."
Yeah, well,
Crazy.
in reality, it's a lot easier to govern a population if you put them under the impression that they're free and uh, hold off on any authoritarian measures and just structure the system to benefit you in terms of revenue. That's it.
Well,
I mean,
that's how you teach children. That's how you get children to do what you want. Is you give them choices. Both of the choices you have complete control over. Doesn't
mhm,
matter which one they give. So you said, "Hey," rather than saying you get dressed, you say, "Hey, you want to wear your blue shirt, or your red shirt? It's your
yeah,
choice." So the
yeah,
child doesn't want to get dressed, but now he's got a choice to which shirt he gets. So
mhm,
that's what they're doing to us. They're giving us choice, but of course, doesn't matter which choice we make.
yeah,
They have all the power.
yeah. It's a fake choice. It's just like the choice between Republicans and Democrats, where for whatever reason, um, it seems that Trump was the exception to this. Beginning to see it that way, that he wasn't a politician and he wasn't an insider, and that's probably why they want to get rid of him so badly. Why he's up on indictments, facing, I don't know, 850 years in prison or something like that. Uh, at this point, it's like just ridiculous, and it's so obvious that it's some kind of a witch hunt. And then the Republican House committee or whatever indicts Hunter Biden as in retaliation. It's so obvious that it's just one mafia versus another mafia.
Mhm.
But it seems to me that Trump was the exception. That he wasn't a politician at
yeah.
heart. No.
So the question is, I'm presenting here is if Trump does get indicted and he goes, will he go to prison? And if he does and he wins the election, or will they take him off the ballot? Because I know Colorado was saying something about they're going to take him off the ballot. So because of all of this stuff. I mean, how can you get elected if they take you off the ballot?
They can't take you off the ballot. There's always a write-in candidate option. And no, they can't. I mean, Eugene V. Debs back in the 20s, he was in prison while he was candidating or during the election, and he still got like a significant amount of votes.
Well, if he does win the election and he has to go to prison, what then? I mean, will they make him go to prison and serve
If
as
they make
president?
if they make him go to prison, I guarantee you he'll win. Because they'll make a martyr out of him. That's the
Yeah,
easiest way to make him a martyr, and that's the easiest way to get him reelected, because that's probably what the system secretly wants. They think that all the Trumpians are going to be using reverse logic, like, oh yeah, if they're all against him, therefore we want him in office.
yeah.
So But then again, in retrospect, you could say that it was a disastrous presidency because you had not only the COVID, the rise of COVID, or the BLM riots, the George Floyd riots, uh,
Mhm.
the fact that he had the most unstable cabinet, where the list of people that he hired and fired during that 4 years is like thousands of people. It seems,
Yeah.
it's you can never remember like who's the Secretary of State, or wait, who's the acting Secretary of State.
Yeah, well, they went through a lot of them were quitting, and then
Yeah,
he would get new ones, and then he would get rid of them. But I think it's because, uh, as I researched too, some of them that most of the people in Congress or working in the government are people who already worked at these corporations. They
yes,
and then they get done with working in the government and they go back to working in the corporation, and then they
hmm,
leave the corporation and they go back to working in the government. How convenient is that? So
yeah,
they just swoop back and
yeah,
forth.
yeah. And it's the same thing with like the financial regulators, the SEC. All those people are like high-ranking finance or officers, or former or current finance officers. Yeah, it's a major conflict of interest, and you would think that they would do something about that, but obviously the system doesn't want to. It's just like they don't want to do anything about official bribery called lobbying. That's
Yes.
if you bribe a cop, you're looking at 500 years in jail. But if you do it as a lobbyist, where okay, I'll take your wife or on a huge vacation in Alaska or whatever, or I'll set up a fund in her name and I'll transfer $500,000 to it if you vote this way.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
It 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 boils down to when you really step back. Like I said, people are starting to wake up at this, and they're stepping back
mhm.
and they're saying, "I think I see this.
a,
Something's
a
wrong
lot
with this picture."
a lot of
And
people are seeing it with the COVID.
yes, that was a
So
good awakener.
I think a lot of people are not going to fall for the same bullshit as last time, especially with the mask and the social distancing and shutdowns of businesses, certain businesses. Um, it's that was the biggest wealth transfer in the history of mankind, and it was from the middle class to the upper class because they made out like a bandit on this.
Yes, yes, they did.
So now, in retrospect, we see that. So any future attempts at curbing, even a genuine virus, are going to go on deaf ears. Even though, I've heard it said by experts that if there really existed a respiratory virus that was that contagious, there's literally no way to defend against it. None. You'd have to have like every person living like a bubble boy for like the next 50 years or something. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. No, I totally agree with that one. It is hilariously funny.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, and they're coming out every day. I listen, and they come out with some new thing. Like the latest one, there's some crazy disease where you get really tired for a few weeks, and then you fall into a coma, and then your organs and things shut down, and it's crazy. Like, and I'm thinking, and you don't even know you have it. You just get really tired. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what new one they gonna think of next? Yeah.
First of all, there is no disease that has no symptoms. There is no disease out there where you don't know that you have it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And you generally, if there is like a pre-symptomatic phase of a disease, that lasts maybe a day or two, it's generally not contagious during that asymptomatic period.
That is true. Now for our next big fail to fall. And I couldn't find a good one here,
Ooh.
and I didn't want to put up the thing and mention it too much. But I'm going to tell my kids this was Epstein's client list. And I'm thinking, yeah, because everybody in the world seems to know that he was the guy. I'm sure there was more guys, but
Hmm.
the problem is, and they went on with it, now it's like a joke. Did he kill himself or didn't he kill himself? And
No.
it's just hilarious to think. I mean, it's become a joke because people go, well, the cameras just shut off that day.
Yeah,
And they
and the
put a
guards
guy
were
in
all
there.
asleep.
The guards just at this top security prison with video cameras and everything. Both of them fell asleep at the same time for that, and it's like he had psychic vision. I know it. I know they're asleep now. Now's my chance. I'm going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to do this and nobody will know. I mean, it's it.
He had like, I'm sure he had some cute little plush toys shipped to the guards, So they were both asleep with like these cute little plush teddy bears.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly it. It's like, really? And the guy they put a guy in there to like watch him,
Yeah.
because you're on suicide watch, you're not supposed to be alone. But they
Hmm.
just happened to remove him because the
Hmm.
cameras were off. The guys fell asleep. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I'm thinking if it was me at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd be asleep.
Yeah.
Especially if there was nobody in the room, I would definitely be asleep. I wouldn't wake up going, oh, it's time to do the deed. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had
Plus,
enough money. He was going to get off,
of
you know?
course, just like he got off the first time when he got when he got sentenced. When he got sentenced, it was like a slap on the wrist because although he got prison time, but he only had to serve it like between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. So like he could go home and sleep in his bed literally, and then just report for jail for 8 hours and then come back.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
Uh,
ridiculously lenient.
Yeah, and that's the thing when you get it, it's too ridiculous.
Hmm.
That's the point. It's just too ridiculous.
And plus,
Um,
he should have gotten a much stricter sentence given what he was convicted of.
yes.
But then again, there's indications that the prosecutor in that case was related to the headmaster of the school that he taught at in Manhattan,
hmm Yeah.
where he taught at where that was some what was his name, Barr. Yeah, where Barr was Attorney General of the state of Florida at that time, and Barr was the name of the headmaster, and he was related to Attorney General Barr back when he was
Oh.
still working Florida.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That is
and also the connection to Epstein Barr, right? There's an Epstein Barr virus that's caused by like vaccinations. Yeah,
and
and
and oh, that's so true. Speaking of that isn't after they got digging into Epstein, didn't they find that he had all these secret places and he was doing work with cells and
yeah,
biochemistry and
yeah,
all of this weird stuff. Like he had um tennis courts that were like giant mats that were folded out to look like tennis courts from the air, but there was nothing there. What was up
yeah,
with that? You
yeah,
know,
yeah, 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 yeah. That was
little
really strange.
yeah, underground tunnels, leading from one ranch place to another, so you didn't have to walk outside. I'm thinking,
Hmm.
oh, that's what money can buy you, but that
Yeah,
means
he's like some
doing
James
something.
Bond villain. I mean, what the hell
Yeah,
was he really up to? And we might never even know. But he was obviously working with the U.S. government, obviously trying to get dirt on all these high-ranking people, because everybody was at his place on Epstein Island. Everybody who was anybody, even Trump was there.
yeah, yeah. And it just reminds me of another famous figure we had, and I don't have his picture up here, but I can get it a little bit. It's Charles Manson.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't there was a lot of controversy with
Hmm.
that one, if you remember, back in the day. And it was a big, to this day it's a big conspiracy how the Sharon Tate got killed,
Hmm.
but they moved all the furniture out after she got killed. They wiped down the place, and they all the witnesses were actors, and they were just, everything was
Hmm.
just too good to be true.
Hmm.
And he just died recently here. But then there was other people saying every time you seen him in the pictures, he had a big beard and a shaggy face. And they said, but they don't allow prisoners to have a beard and a shaggy face in prison. Now that makes it just
Hmm.
me wonder. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not.
No, I don't. I
No,
don't think that is true. I don't think they have any way of really enforcing a prisoner's appearance. But it is
yeah.
strange that that he was constantly maintaining his innocence, and
Yeah.
I think they pinned it on him because he was a convenient scapegoat because he was so noticeable and
Well,
so weird.
yeah, but he also had ties to the CIA. He was passing out
That too.
drugs to all the actors and stars. He was
That's true.
literally a nobody
Hmm.
that did nothing. And he was the local vagabond who got tied up giving drugs to all the big wigs and the stars in the background,
Hmm.
kind of like the Epstein guy. Got kind of good and rich. Somebody got killed, and they looked
Hmm.
around and went, we got to blame it on somebody. That guy, he's got
Yeah.
nothing. He's got
Yeah.
nobody. He's a nobody. We can put him
Hmm.
away forever, and it's the
Yeah,
way
it's
it is.
probably he was probably doing something with MK along the lines of MK Ultra, some kind of mind control experimentation using psychedelics because we know that they were involved with that, and I
Yes,
think Epstein was to a degree as well.
yes.
Uh, Something along the lines of MK Ultra, definitely.
Speaking of MK Ultra, I don't know about this. I heard this a little bit on the news the other day, and they were saying, remember how Trump was trying to ban TikTok?
Hmm. Yeah.
You know, we went, this is another veil that's lifting. TikTok, oh, we're going to ban TikTok. And then Biden comes along and says, TikTok's good for you. Watch all the TikTok you want, right? It's
Yeah.
all good. Now I hear that China has some kind of brain wave control mechanism type stuff, and
Hmm.
they're sending it through TikTok.
And they can monitor it much more easily using the mobile. They all want you to use the mobile. Well, why? Very simple, because the mobile has a camera and a microphone. Whereas, like on my PC, my main one, I don't have a camera or a microphone.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
yeah.
insist on not having one. I only turn this computer on for when I'm live streaming or video chatting with somebody. And that's
Mhm.
all I ever use this computer for. This is also the only computer I have that's running Windows. But that's
Mhm.
another Trojan, that's another
Yeah,
backdoor, that's another security risk that I
yeah,
don't
that's right.
allow
You
into
run
my.
you run
Uh,
Linux, don't you?
yes, yeah, I'm running Linux on all my machines, and I wouldn't trust Windows or Apple to do things even as basic as online banking. No, forget it.
Yeah, yeah. It's there's when these things come out, but the thing is does the general public hear about this? Are they,
You
when they hear about this, do they actually, my buddy, he tells me, you need to put your phone down, turn it off,
Yeah.
change your number every couple of months or years or whatever, switch it
Hmm.
up so they don't hear you and do things because they're tracking you, they're tracking you, they're tracking you.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And like I said, it's got a camera and a microphone. And unless you're conscious and you're going to be covering that shit up, they can monitor you. They can find out which videos you're watching based on the audio from that thing. That's why, yes, I do have mobile phones, but I keep them on the other side of the house where you couldn't hear me even if you wanted to. Also, I'm sensitive to EM radiation, which is also the reason why I keep this machine off, because this is wireless,
Mhm.
and I don't have any wireless in this room whatsoever. Everything's wired.
Yep. Yep. Now I can hear him in my head yelling at me saying, "But you're an idiot." He says, "You're giving him all your information anyway. You're talking on the phone, you're doing this stuff, you're giving your information all the time. Every time you do something." And I'm like, "Well, I kind of do, but if I want things, like if
Hmm.
I want to, have PayPal, or if I want to get on YouTube, or if I want to have an account at, Amazon, or if I want to have an account with this or that or whatever, I have to give out my information in order to have it. Is there any way around it? Or do you guys do that too, both of you? That's a good question. Do you do that, or you give them false names,
Well,
different accounts?
well, that depends. I mean, I do have PayPal, but I've got it configured where it's through a non-local account,
Mhm.
and well, I'm not going to mention where. And it's I've got it. In other words, I'm using encryption. I'm using various techniques to stay private. But I would recommend that people adopt Bitcoin. as a payment system, because the only problem is getting money into and out of your Bitcoin wallet. But I have Bitcoin, and it was the best investment I ever made because I bought one Bitcoin back in the 2010s, early 2010s, for $20.
Oh boy.
Yes, yeah, one of the best investments I ever made. So, I mean, I'm kind of a hypocrite because I'm not using Bitcoin for ordinary transactions
Mhm.
because it's still not at the level, what was promised or what was theorized as being like a privacy coin turned out to not be so private because there are techniques whereby you can find out who the recipient is or who the sender is. But for the most part, that was like uh, um, uh, uh, a vanguard of like the privacy movement and a way to approach financial privacy in the 21st century. Because since 1989, we've seen like a decrease in the civil rights of ordinary people. Sure, the wall came down, communism came down, but communism itself is a parasitic system and it needs a host. And that system has moved towards the West. It's moved to the United States and Western Europe, where you have more and more dictatorial controls taking over people's lives, decreasing their privacy and decreasing their financial freedom. And the most important aspect of your privacy is your financial privacy. They say, oh, it's to prevent terrorism. Oh, it's to prevent tax evasion. Well, first of all, there are no real terrorists that are not government sponsored. And those governments can print up all the tax money they want to because they keep doing it anyway. So what's a dollar worth nowadays? Nothing. The amount of inflation that you're seeing is through the roof. Where when I was on vacation up in Canada in 1983, exactly 40 years ago, I was in the Laurentide Mountains in San Caliste, all right, in San Caliste, Quebec, and you'd walk around and you'd see like houses for sale, $5,000 to $8,000. Nowadays, you look online in that same town, those houses are selling for $600,000 to $800,000. In other words, an increase of 100-fold. Okay, so don't tell me there's no inflation, and don't tell me that it's what 2.9%, 5%. No, it's a lot worse than that. A
Yeah.
lot worse.
Oh,
But
lots
at the
worse.
same time, silver's gone nowhere. Back in 1983, it was like $5 an ounce. Nowadays, it's like uh, what, $25 an ounce?
Yeah, I
That's
think
still
it's
nothing. That's still peanuts.
yeah, it's like 23 yesterday or 22.50 or 60 or something like that.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
peanuts.
hovering at nothing. Yeah, I mean, compared to what everything, it's like they're artificially holding it down. You
Yeah,
know,
definitely they
and
are artificial, and I know this. I know this from like very high-ranking people, very rich people that I used to work with when I was a manager in the banking sector.
Mhm.
So uh, yes, they are buying silver, and they're keeping the prices down so that they can all get on board. Because
And
ordinary
they can
people
have it.
have lost money on silver, especially the fools that bought in May of 1979 when it went up to $50, a price that it's never reclaimed. But
Yes.
here's the deal: back in 1915, the price of silver was $2 an ounce. Okay, $2 an ounce, which is a hell of a lot more expensive in 1915 dollars than $20 an ounce is today, or $25 an ounce. So, as meager as my income is, I'm still buying silver every day,
Yeah,
as
because
much as I can afford.
it's just a holding of the wealth. But the thing is eventually, someday,
Hmm.
the normal, average, everyday person doesn't have any silver or gold.
That's the
They don't
problem.
hold any. And then that person, when things go to the shitter, and they come out and say, "Well, now the only thing we could trade in for the next 6 months is gold and silver. Do you got any?" Nope.
Hmm.
Well, sorry, you're out of luck.
Yeah,
Um,
instead you can sell us your kidney or blood.
yeah, there you go. And here's another headline: Government hiding its failures behind. Speaking of a veil of misinformation. And this is about some other country, but it just represents that the governments are not only our government but other governments. This one was in some foreign country Parliament of Sargara Fuga Abdullah. I don't even know where it was, but
I think, yeah,
I
it's
thought
India.
India. Okay, yeah, India. So they're hiding their failures behind in misinformation too. I mean, we just don't get it. It's just not our government. I mean, sometimes we think, oh, it's just, the United States, it's just Canada, it's just blah blah blah. No, it's all of them. They're all doing. They're
Yeah.
all doing it.
Agreed. Yeah, totally. Because they saw everybody watches the United States. The United States is the most public country on earth. You can't not follow what's going on there just by virtue of the fact that their cinematographic industry has taken over the world. Their music has taken over the world. The culture has taken over the world. So everybody's watching the US. So it's an easy country to follow for the rest of the world.
Yes.
And when they
Yes.
see like these obvious deceptions that they're getting away with, at least initially, um, uh, they're imitating the same thing. But like I pointed out before, I think the vast majority of people are smart enough to see through the lies, like with the Corona thing, except that they're not gonna express this disbelief and this skepticism in a public forum. They'll tell it to you one on one. You know, but they're not gonna actually admit to it in front of their own friends whom they perceive as being with the mainstream. It's just like here in Germany. Here in Germany, they're all going to say, "Oh, we support immigration. Oh, we do, yeah." But if you get any of these Germans one on one in the same room, they're going to be like, "Oh no, there's like too many of these people from the global south that we can't support all these people." It's costing Germany 49 billion euros every year in a country of 80 million. And since 2015, Germany has accepted more immigrants than the United States and all the other countries combined. So, that's a bit too much.
Yeah, well, you're bringing in a total different culture there too. I mean,
Hmm.
those people are, Muslims, a lot of them, and Germany, it was normally a Christian, got
Hmm.
Bible thumping country, and they're going from one to the other. Whereas at least when the immigrants come from Mexico and Honduras and all those other crazy places here in the United States, not saying anything, but anyway, the point is
Well, see,
they
all those
have.
Mexicans are Christians. They're
Yes,
Christians.
at least they have that same mentality in some crazy way or another. But I see
Hmm.
it here too. The other day they had Mexican Day at the farmers market. There was so many of them there. I was like, it was hard pressed to find one that wasn't a Mexican
Hmm.
or Honduran or somebody. And I'm thinking, holy cow! I didn't realize there were so many here.
Hmm.
Um,
See,
lucky, you got Mexicans there. You got immigrants in your area.
Yeah, but don't worry about them. The Mexicans aren't the problem.
Oh,
The Mexicans aren't the problem. It's the ones south of Mexico are the problem.
yes, the
They let them through
Ecuadorians.
Mexico. The
Yes,
people from Mexico are not your problem. It's the ones south that the
yes,
Mexico lets through.
I
hmm
agree. I agree with that. Yeah, we stereotypically do um, put that Mexico stamp on them, which is kind of bad because you're right. They're from Ecuador, they're from Honduras, El Salvador, Brazil, Venezuela, where their country is pretty much collapsed.
Trashed, yeah. The
You know,
country's trashed,
and
yes.
yeah, but where I used to live in the New York area, most of those so-called Mexicans are actually Puerto Ricans, like in Washington Heights, which is a section of Manhattan. That's all Puerto Ricans, and those are technically not immigrants; they're Americans.
Yes.
yep,
But see, the United States again is the exception to the rule because the United States was created as an immigrant country.
Hmm.
So, that's to a certain degree, you could say that's okay and that's to be expected. However, the problem is when you try to make every place on earth look like New York. That's where the problem is, where that's what the globalists or whoever's really in charge want. They want every place to look like the United States.
Well, no,
And
the problem comes down to that the people who follow the rules, the Mexicans and South Americans who came in, followed all the rules, and the
yeah,
people who snuck in illegally, they're given the same rights.
hmm yeah,
when you say, "Oh, you don't allow immigration," it's nothing about immigration. It's about the illegal immigration. It's not the same thing. And honestly, the legal immigrant Mexicans hate the illegals. They
Yeah.
hate them with a passion.
Mhm.
And there's definitely, if you work with them, because there are people who are given called a free green card. They won't work together. They refuse to work together. They say no, 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 no.
Mhm.
And they treat, and even though they're hard workers, they're illegal, but they're hard workers. The ones who are here legally, they treat them like garbage. They make them do the hard tasks, and
Mhm.
it just makes resentments. And it feeds up the whole culture. And and they know that they have to suffer more. They have to do
Mhm.
the terrible jobs, and they're very resentful of it.
Yeah, I
You know,
mean, I
and the
myself
government,
was.
yeah, they still have it. That's the government loves that.
Yeah, yeah. The government thrives on discord.
Hmm.
But yeah, I myself was an immigrant in the United States, but I was also a political refugee
Hmm.
from communist Czechoslovakia. And I came to the country 100% legally and stayed in the United States 100% legally. And on February 1st, 1989, I became a U.S. citizen. So, yeah. and But then again, you don't have any illegals coming from Eastern Europe.
Yeah, yeah, a little ocean there to swim across.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But although now they're saying that the border patrol's reporting that people from China, Russia, Africa, they're all coming across that border because Mexico is letting them come up through South America and come up through the border. So how as highly regulated as China is, how are people getting to leave that communist country where they have an eyeball or a camera, I should say, on you 24/7, and they let them get on a plane and say, "Hey, we'll see you over in Venezuela, and you can make your way up to the United States. Good luck." Is
Well,
there a point behind that?
in some ways, a lot of the information about China is misinformation too. It's not as communist as a lot of people might think, in the sense that there's a lot of Westerners living there, and it's a lot easier to get out of China if you have the money than it is to get out of Eastern European countries during the communist times. I
Oh,
mean, I was sitting there in the airport, watching the Chinese get on a plane going back. This was in Copenhagen, Denmark, and they were just letting them on the airplane. There was no checks, no baggage checks, nothing. They were just like they were just getting on the airplane. That's it. So in a sense, you could say that it's a lot easier. But I would suspect that a lot of these are like paid agents, because if I was Chinese and I was living under that system where it was even a fraction of as dictatorial as they say it is, and I had the opportunity to emigrate from China and move to Mexico, I would just stay in Mexico, because as disadvantaged as it might seem from a U.S. perspective, you still have a lot more freedom over there than a place like even the United States. If you're an entrepreneur or whatever, you have the same opportunities to start up and to get the Mexican citizenship as anywhere else. So after all, their constitution is directly copied from the U.S. Constitution. That's why they have a Distrito Federal for Mexico City, just like the District of Columbia. Their constitution and their government is modeled after the U.S. one.
mhm.
So, and it's a
There's a lot of
capitalist
them out
country.
there that are
Yeah,
modeled after the U.S.
yeah,
Constitution.
yeah, like Israel. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. Yeah, a lot to digest here tonight. I mean, it's just like I said, but the old world is falling down. The new, and now I think people are seeing through it. But the
Hmm.
thing is building it up on the the, the better end. After all of this happens, it's like anything else. You tear the building down, and then there's all this rubble, and that's going to be our crash system. I mean, there's going to be a time of rubble,
Hmm.
hard times, when you need that silver or gold to buy your things. But then good things happen from that, and the new system will be created, and hopefully it'll be better because, like we all know, that every single country and is printing money. Not only the United States, China is, Canada is, all
Hmm.
of those countries are printing money, and nobody plans on paying it back. I really don't. You can't pay back $33 trillion when your budget is $5 trillion over budget.
Exactly, exactly, there's every indication that there's no indication of any payback, which brings up an interesting point. Like that's one of the tax evasion strategies that you can use. You could just keep taking out loans because proceeds from a loan are not taxable income, and then when you pay it back, it's also not taxable because that's repayment of a loan.
Mhm.
So you get the best of both worlds. But
Yeah.
yeah, I see that happening even in my own country. Yeah, where you have massive inflation because the inflation is coordinated globally. It doesn't seem that way because $1 will still buy you 25 Czech crowns, and it's been that way for the past 30 years or so. Not much has changed. Why? Because both countries are inflating their currencies the same way.
Mm-hmm.
In other
Mm-hmm.
words, they're all in lockstep. They're all coordinated. They're all
Yeah.
coordinated behind the scenes, behind the backs of the ordinary citizens, which reinforces my claim that I've been saying over and over again that government is the enemy of the people, and we have to see them that way.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you're going to get change is not through voting, but through like mass resistance, not violent. You don't have to do anything really. Just start ignoring them.
Yeah, yeah, ignoring him. Courtney says this is the last day to help the Maui people. I just want to check that in there. And donate to go over to the Stars of the Morning Light. Click on the PayPal. And Courtney, if you can drop that in the chat here and your link. And if you want to go donate, even if it's $5, $50, $100, she's going to send that out and get real help to those people. She has real connections to real people from Maui that can really help. So your money will go to a good place, even if it's a few bucks. Try helping out. If you have it to spare, good for you. If not, just send healing energy to them. They can use that too, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, with all of that, yeah, there's a lot to that. Mr. Mensa's in the house. I haven't seen you in a while. He says this is a debt-based system. Debt creates money. Whole system is wrong, flawed, and unworkable. Absolutely right. Well said.
Yeah, but even I would say that even a credit-based system wouldn't work in today's modern day. It wouldn't.
Yeah, it's but at some point, I think all the countries will just go bankrupt at the same time. There will be this horrible crash, make the
Mm-hmm.
Great Depression look like a high time on society, and then the new system will be created. We'll all get back to work. Things will go. It'll take a while. I bet you it takes 5-10 years of
Mm-hmm.
hardships. But
Yeah, we have the example of Argentina. It took them about 5 years to get back on their feet, and it wasn't as bad as all the Argentinians thought it would be. But getting back to what I said before, that even a credit-based system or one that was based on an asset would fail because you would have like a radical change in the dynamics of power. Like if you were to have a gold-backed currency, then who would be the most powerful? The most powerful would be the gold-producing countries. South Africa would be number one. Russia would be China, Chile. Uh, the United States would come in one of the last places because to this day the U.S. dollar has been dominant, and it's been dominant because of American weaponry reinforcing it, backing it up. That's what's really backing up the United States dollar, not just promises, but weapons.
definitely is. Anyway, I'll just say, Nina says, join me and her tomorrow on Nina the Mystic for Horns of the Goddess, episode 5. We'll be reading from there tomorrow night. I suppose we should probably wrap this up, because these things are happening and everybody wants to go over to Max Vision and check him out over there and do some remote viewing. Um, there's
Yeah.
nothing like a little bit of good remote viewing. Don't forget to donate if you can. Help out. Courtney says anything will help. Donate here. Here's the thing. It's in the chat. Please help her out. Last few days, she's last day or so here. So help her out. Don't forget Horns of the Goddess tomorrow. And listen to Cowboy Boots. He says that's because they now that the new world order is coming. Yes. he can see through the veil. I think a lot of us here can. I just hope that all us good people, and we tell others, and that's the only way it's going to get out there, because we're telling somebody, and maybe, just maybe, they'll be awake enough to see through the veil and go, hey, that guess it doesn't look right. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and one of the symptoms of like an empire in decline is like this insanity that's going on, especially in the United States. I would say that that's a country undergoing a global psychological, a mass psychological breakdown, and you're seeing that in everything. You have like episodes of mass insanity. Just the fact that Subway came out with an ad campaign where they would give they would give like a lifetime of free Subway sandwiches to anybody who changes their name to Subway, and like 15,000 people applied.
Wow.
So 15,000
Really?
people applied to have their names changed to Subway. Okay.
Talk about
Yeah. It's
people.
and it's not just the people that are willing to do this, but like the fact that any board of directors would come up with something like this is indicative of a severe decadence, if anything.
Yeah. I mean,
You'd never get away with this in the 1960s.
no.
No,
People
no.
were smarter back then. Either that, or they just weren't that clever in putting that out there.
Yeah.
I don't know, one way or another. Don't forget to join me and Nita tomorrow night, everybody. Thank you guys for being on, and all your intuitive, knowledge. I mean, both of you have untold knowledge here, and I'm glad you can both contribute. And this has been, hopefully it helps somebody. That's all it is. I just hope it helps make people realize, and they will pass this out and say, hey, maybe I should look into some of this stuff. But with that said, remember, people, go over to Max Vision, check him out. He's on right now, and improve your mind so you too can see the future, see things, learn how to do this remote viewing thing. And with that, and remember, be nice to your neighbors. When a disaster hits, if it's a fire like in Maui, or if it's a tornado, or maybe a hurricane on the coast, which seems to be the thing lately, your neighbor's going to help you. The government is not coming. Your friend 200 miles away isn't going to rush down and help you as much as the guy across the street. You and that person need to be a little more friendly. Get to know them, smile, wave, so at least he knows, hey, that's a pretty good guy over there. He's my neighbor. And remember, people, most of all, be that frequency you want to receive, everybody. Love y'all. Peace, everybody.